four of the most powerful men in tech are heading to Capitol Hill in just a few hours, virtually that is, for a grilling over their platforms, their policies, and their power. The heads of Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google's parent Alphabet will go before a House committee, and you can expect some pretty fierce questioning. Let's talk about what to expect now with John Yun. He's a former official at the FTC's Antitrust Division. He teaches now at the Global Antitrust Institute at George Mason University. John, good to see you here. How much of today do you think is going to be a spectacle, or can we expect something substantive to come from this hearing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Alexis. I think we'll have both. I mean, there will be moments of rhetoric and high drama. This is a historic day to have four CEOs lined up. But I also think it will be substantive because it's been a very long investigation, and the investigation has been very detailed on specific aspects of conduct, including big data, privacy, censorship, acquiring nascent competitors, self-preferencing, all these various topics and more, I think will be drilled down into.
John, do you think lawmakers will be swayed by personal stories from each of these executives? They do have some compelling stories, especially Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I think everyone can admire the larger story and success of these companies. There's no doubt they bring a lot of employment, a lot of surplus to consumers. But then we can also separate specific conduct from that larger benefit. And is that specific conduct in violation of the antitrust laws or being pursued in a way that's a little more deceptive? And so I think we can have both. And so that will be the tension during the day. There'll be positive stories, but then there'll be specific aspects of conduct that will be raised up in terms of its scrutiny.
Two of these four people are among the richest in the world, right, John? You've got Amazon's Jeff Bezos, the richest person in the world, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, one of the richest. How hard a sell is it going to be for these gentlemen when they talk about the fact that they believe their companies are not monopolies, and not just to sell to lawmakers, but to sell to the public?
I think that's right. I think that's the big sell right now, because antitrust has changed quite dramatically in the past 5 years. It used to be, I wouldn't call a sleepy area of the law, but a very technical area. But today, the populist sort of movement, including among the general population, about these CEOs who everyone seems to know very well, I think that has sort of tempered these success stories where we would normally be celebrating these success stories. I think there's a greater sense that success has come at the expense of smaller competitors and at the expense of their data and their privacy and maybe even their free speech. And so they feel like they are benefiting at their expense. That seems to be the change recently, as opposed to, I would say, even 5-10 years ago.
John, is one of the biggest concerns specifically, let's focus in on Amazon. Are they employing predatory pricing?
So I think that's an empirical question. I don't know. I don't have access to the data, so I'm not going to make an assessment here with that. But I think that's a reasonable allegation. It's something you look into. You need detailed information on cost. Now, below pricing in of itself isn't predatory. It has to serve a larger purpose, such as promotional pricing, introductory pricing, trying to get wide distribution, which will then be able to be monetized. So it's a very hard theory to bring in antitrust traditionally, I think rightly so, but that doesn't mean that it's off the table. And I think it would be something I think regulators will be looking at.
Just want to share with you some prepared testimony we got to look at. Mark Zuckerberg expected to say, as I understand our laws, companies aren't bad just because they're big. And Jeff Bezos is expected to liken his company to some of the larger competitors. He says, every day Amazon competes against large established players like Walmart, a company more than twice Amazon's size. So do these two executives have a point there, John?
I think they do. But then there's this other side. So just very briefly, I think something that will be touched on today is a difference between the existence and even the exercise of lawful market power or even monopoly power and the abuse of that power, right? And so the latter category, the abuse, that's the violation of antitrust, whereas currently the existence and even the exercise of that market power, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Now, that's changing. There is an appetite for saying even the existence and exercise of that power is too much. And so there'll be calls for regulations on top of antitrust. But, I like to keep those things quite separate. And I think antitrust laws are very comfortable with market power. And that's going to be the tension. I think there will be stories that big isn't bad, and I think that's right. But there's also stories that, well, big can be bad if you abuse that behavior through specific conduct. So again, we're going to see that tension, two sides of the same coin.